All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. Today, we're excited. We're about 45 days away from our third summit, Craig? Yeah,
yes, sir. Third summit.
And we're getting hyped. I'm actually, honestly, I've been spending a lot of time, probably an obsessive amount of time recently just on bringing current data, because this summit's going to be more about marketing and stuff, but really just refreshing all the content and staying current.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it's a new decade and we need this new data set. And so I've been spending, I get in these wormholes or rabbit holes, I should say. Actually, a wormhole is probably fun. But I just get obsessed and I kind of do like 10 hours a day of just like research and stuff. So I've found some really cool stuff that I can't wait to share with some summit folks that are coming. And stuff that I've been implementing even last year that I have enough data on that's really working from a marketing perspective for Atlanta Dental Spa. And I know you have some of the same data because we share this now. But it's just really cool. I'm really excited for this year and what it's going to bring.
And it's cool, Pete. Pete and I had an epiphany when we were kind of reformatting our summit material to change it up, and we did a deeper dive into financial freedom. Like, Pete, when we talk about the P&L and we talk about overhead and production versus collections, we are way overestimating what our average colleague understands to these points, because dentistry, we don't even have the same terminology. People are like, oh, I produced this. I'm like, well, what'd you collect? Why does production even matter? Yeah. And, we hear about people saying debt and all debt is not bad. And we hear dentists talk about their overhead numbers and what goes into the overhead. People don't even understand that, you have to pay yourself as a dentist on your P&L in order to figure out what your profitability is. If you are a shoemaker and you work 90 hours a week, and you don't pay yourself as a technician, as a shoemaker, and you say, oh, I make $100,000 a year. If you have to pay someone $120 to replace you, you actually don't have a business, you have a job.
You bought yourself a job, exactly.
You bought yourself a job.
And that actually was a lot of, Craig, I'm glad you brought that up because that was a big focus yesterday is, I've actually had people walk up to me and honestly, when I was probably 23 years old, I thought P&L stood for P, the letter P, N, the letter N, L.
Yeah, I heard that. I thought that too.
So, and you're right. So we just assume, just because we have battle scars of kind of having to learn business, we assume that everyone knows, number one, how to read financial statements. Number two, what to do with that data once you get it. So part of, everyone gets financial statements. I think they can be organized a little bit better. And that's what we're going to talk about at the summit is kind of some of that financial acumen, or the fourth tier of what we think people makes a practice bulletproof, right? The financial aspect. So some of that is just breaking it down. And so, just like Craig, just like we talk about, there's so many metrics out there in dentistry, but you and I have kind of distilled it down to like the four that we think move the needle in terms of like, move the needle in your practice. We have all these analytics and, all these things that you can look at, like production per hour, blah, blah, blah. But you and I have kind of distilled it down in like, what's going to move the needle? Because at the end of the day, you can drown in data, just like you can drown in data in a P&L. Yeah. So I've kind of done a deep dive into some of that to help give some financial acumen to, evaluating it and seeing like, hey, is the train going off the tracks? Yes or no?
But also just to know, to standardize how you're doing is important as well, because, we talk about how bad
standardize or kind of like, or standardize against other people or calibrate like for yourself.
Calibrate for yourself so that you have an understanding of like what I like to call entrepreneurial profit. So there's if you're a dentist and you own a practice, if you're a solo doctor, you could say, okay, well, what is my entrepreneurial profit? What is the benefit that I get for owning this practice, owning and managing this practice? Some of us have negative entrepreneurial profit. Ask me how I know. I've been through that and done that. So, a doctor will come to me. I'm going to be doing a podcast later today. And I remember talking to one of this doctor's friends, and he says, hey, I want to create what you have. I'm like, well, what do you have exactly? He's like, well, I have a practice. I work 3 days a week, and it's just me solo. I've got one associate, but doesn't really do a whole lot of dentistry. And I'm like, okay, so what do you want? He's like, well, I want to practice like yours, like Boulden's, because I want to make money when I'm sleeping, when I'm not there. So I said, okay, so what do you do? He told me his collections. He told me his overhead. He knew his numbers, which is actually huge, because I'd say 90% of people I talk to, they don't even know their numbers. They don't know what they spend on marketing. They don't know what they spend on facility, staff salaries, et cetera. And it came to find out this guy was making probably on 3 days a week, week, about 1.5 million, working 3 days a week, keeping the practice open 3 days a week. And I'm like, dude, you're crushing it. You're crushing it. So if you have like 7 or 8 other associates and a larger operation, a larger overhead, you could possibly go up to 20% in profitability, but you know how much money you'll have to do as a gross to get to 1.5? I mean, do the numbers there, right? So if you want to get to 20% profitability and have passive income, I'm doing numbers here quickly. It would be divided by 0.2. Yeah, he's gonna have to build a $7.5 million practice to net.
With a practice that's 20% profitability.
Right. Or he's doing about like 3 million right now with his own hands and the assistants and a couple of hygienists and working 3 days a week, and he's at 1.5. So I think it's really important to recognize if it's about fulfillment and fulfilling a vision. Part of my vision was to have this multi-specialty clinic and have everything under one roof. And I thought that was really cool. And that was part of my vision for what was going to bring me fulfillment. But if it's like, if money is what you really want, you have to have a different model and approach it from money and fulfillment, not just money or fulfillment. I think it's important.
Yeah. And, and you get, this guy, because he knew his numbers, right, Craig? I would say that's probably why he had stuff like that. You get what you focus on. So if you're looking at stuff and tracking, it's Pearson's law, right? If you're looking at all the stuff and tracking it, it tends to grow in response because your psychology is on that. It's funny you bring this up. So I guess we're having a financial talk. I really wanted to talk about some of the cool things going on the summit. Do you want to break this up into and do another little financial thing? Because I got some cool stuff about even just talking about debt, because you talked about, should we make that a different appeal out? Because I think I don't want to dilute all this stuff down. Let's keep talking about some of the summit stuff, like the fact that we've got Chris Tuff coming from a leadership standpoint,
sure.
Millennial Workforce.
Sure. Yeah, I'm excited about Chris. I mean, I know he's written a best-selling book, and you and I always talk about when there's something amazing or something mediocre in the business world, it's revolutionary in the dental world, because the dental world kind of lags behind. So imagine having something literally epic in the business world. What's that going to mean for the dental world? I mean, Chris Tuff he's being retained by Nike, right? He's flying around working with Nike. So
Nike, LexisNexis, big companies. And, he and I spend time together, and it's funny. His book is called The Millennial Whisperer, and he's speaking, he's going to be speaking at our summit, and he's just an amazing speaker. Number one, I've seen him a couple times, but number two, the bulk of our workforce in dentistry, Craig, are millennials now, I would venture to say.
It is. It's true.
And probably the bulk of maybe practice owners are not. What generation are we? Generation X?
We're Generation X, Pete.
Yeah. So there's obviously a difference in communication, and the more you can align with what drives that culture, meaning that that genre of people, the millennial workforce, the more that your practice can thrive. Just like we talk, that's why you and I, honestly, I feel like that's why we put a big emphasis on social media in our practices. It's not so much because we want, yes, it does help attract patients, but I feel as though it also helps attract top tier talent for people who want to work for us, because that generation seeks significance a lot more, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And then what goes into the millennial workforce? The problem is guys like you and me, the X's and the ones before us, the boomers, they really believe that they're frustrated by a lot of the millennial workforce, because the millennial workforce wants to work for meaning over just money. They want to work for something bigger. That's the context that the social media comes in. They want to see that tribal cultural aspect to the practice, and they can resonate with that. They want to vibe with that and identify through their work. And boomers and X, when we talk generations, I don't want to paint in broad brushstrokes.
Yeah, or else Mark's going to crush you again.
Mark Cooper will come out and punch me through the microphone again. But it's true that there are trends and generations, and the boomers just said a good work ethic is acting, you have to look like you're engaged, and they actually faked engagement. Like, remember, what was the guy in Seinfeld that used to take naps under Costanza? Costanza would take naps under his desk and shit like that. And he said, Costanza, I remember one episode, he's like, I figured out how to not get bugged at work. Just always walk around like you're mad. So if you walk through the hallway, no one will say, "Hey, George, Costanza, can you do something?"
I'm so grumpy.
Yeah. And then you're like, "Oh yeah, just leave him alone. He's got a lot on his plate." But you know, the millennials are just like, hey, I won't even fake it. Like, don't tell me to do something. Like, I gotta want to do something. And the army loves millennials, by the way, because the
I mean, I
army,
love them too.
I
Honestly,
do
I'm not
too.
gonna lie. I love
I
them
do
too.
too.
And sometimes I look at like some of the time things they say, and I'm like, you know what? You've got it figured out because ours was like, I'll beat you at work. I'll be the first there and the last to leave, and I'll crush you. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? You do that. I'm gonna go have dinner with my buddies.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to craft brew house and put some beard lube
Yeah,
on
and it's gonna be
and
awesome. And I'm
yeah,
gonna
it'll
have
be
way
awesome.
better memories than you working 18-hour days, you dork.
I
You know.
know, I know, man. I know. It's
So
like when
I don't know who's got it
Pete,
figured.
when you and I went to Vancouver and walking around, and we met that Starbucks employee who was like just there for the season, like
That's
skiing. He's from
shook. I
New
was
Zealand.
shook on that one. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
yeah. He's just like, hey, it was so funny. He's like showing us head shops. We're like, oh, we're good. We're gonna be on stage in like an hour. We don't need. It's like, yeah, you know, it's legal here. I'm like, yeah, we're cool. We're cool.
He's
But
like, "You guys
it's
gonna get some tasty runs in? To, like
yeah,
just literally
exactly.
just live it. I'm gonna go home and take a nap." I'm like, okay, buddy.
I
Um,
know. It's so true.
all right. So
Yeah,
we got. I don't want to spend too much time on the on this. We can go down definitely rabbit holes. So we got Bruce coming back.
yeah, Bruce Baird.
Just obviously,
By the way, are you using compassionate finance yet?
we are using it.
I'm really
Yeah.
loving it,
I
by the way.
do what?
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm loving what's going on with it. It's
It's a
super cool.
great source of it's just a great option. Like, we have it, Craig, honestly, in our toolbox of, you still have a care credit and stuff like that, but like, it's a great quiver in your
In your arrow, a
in your
great quiver in your
no,
arrow,
as I should say, it's a great arrow in your quiver. There we
or
go.
whatever you want. I like when you make
Isn't the
shit up.
quiver the thing that holds it?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
quiver.
it's a
Yeah,
great arrow in your quiver,
it
or a good
is.
tool in your toolbox. But yeah, I'm using it, and just
You're more
like,
of a tool in the toolbox guy, Pete.
no,
I've seen your
you're
garage.
the tool. You're the tool in the toolbox, buddy.
No, I don't mean that you're a tool. I meant that like you're the type of saying that's more like,
Oh,
you're a silver bullet in the Yeti type of guy, I think.
got it. Yeah.
But no, it's true.
Are you saying because I'm a pseudo redneck?
You're a pseudo redneck. You're not a pseudo. You're a redneck. You have a zip line in your backyard. But Bruce is. I mean, compassionate finance is cool rather because rather than the big the top finance companies kind of taking the money from you and helping the patients, this can actually turn you into the bank as well. So Pete and I are loving it because it's a way to build some passive income. So
Right.
you have a credit worthy
Yeah.
patient. They want to give you a payment plan. Give them an interest rate.
Disintermediation, right, buddy?
Disintermediation.
I tell you, I'm most excited about. I know we kind of made a declaration about having this being more market based and marketing based, and having a bigger emphasis. So all of Saturday is really. And I got to tell you, like, we have some cool things to disclose. Number one, you and I both having now full-time videographers, and what we've learned from content creation and stuff like that. Literally gone deep dives into paid ads and kind of eyeballs and how much that costs. I haven't even explained, I haven't even shared this with you, like really made some cool discoveries recently about how to do competitive analysis with practices around you and how to crush your competition, how to
Are you
generate.
reducing your paid spend on Google?
I am, because I found this way to do well. So, we've got Google, we've got Facebook. We've got some great stuff that Nathan is going to be speaking, who works for both of us. Is going to be talking about like YouTube ads and kind of paid ads and sequences. It's literally like next level shit. Like, I've got chills because all this data that I've been, it's just cool.
Well, it's cool to think about it because like I was one of the first dentists in my area to start using Google AdWords and pay-per-click. And now it's like, why are
It's
you
a crowded pond.
It's a crowded freaking pond, man.
And guess what? If you're not amazing at it,
Yeah.
you're going to pay the dummy tax.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
the dummy tax, I just looked, Craig, you know what the click for just Invisalign is, by the way, in your area?
In whose area?
Your area.
No, I have no idea.
I have it's $11.
Wow.
So if you're bidding on just Invisalign and someone in Delray and you haven't structured that appropriately, and someone says, that's not for me. They click on it, look for 30 seconds, and they back. That just cost you $11. So imagine if you're outsourcing a lot of your marketing, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but if people are setting up your ad budget the wrong way, man, you can really run out of your ad budget really quickly if you pay the dummy tax and stuff like that. Yeah. So anyway, but also, Craig, I'm getting more into just, look, when you're doing ads, you're paying for eyeballs, right? Whether that's YouTube, Facebook, whatever. And you obviously want those eyeballs to be as cheap as possible. But the cheapest thing is organic traffic. And I've found some cool ways to really just crush inbound organic low hanging fruit traffic. So,
Well, amazing
and
content is, listen, you can pay a lot to get a lot of eyeballs and
but
have
it's not
shitty
just
content.
content. It's
No, but
not,
you could have, just let me
sorry.
complete the thought, because it's kind of a Gary Vee thing. It's like you can pay a lot of money and have a lot of eyeballs, look at a mediocre, non-compelling story, or have a compelling story with fewer eyeballs that you didn't pay, and it's going to create a better result. So it's an
I'm glad
interesting.
you brought that up too. So we're actually going to be leveraging, you just got back from a 3-day course about the story brand,
Yep, that's
right?
cool.
And so we're going to be teaching some of those pearls as well, which is going to be amazing. So just redefining the marketing thing. I know I get kind of, excited about this, but it's going to be awesome, dude. And then lastly,
and the one that I'm most excited about is the thing I think you're going to say lastly. I have a feeling.
The Bulletproof Hygiene.
Yes, exactly. I was hoping you were going to say that. Or also, we'd have to edit this part out. But yes, the Bulletproof
It's
Hygiene.
like, it's
I know.
I've been
freaking
crazy.
Game changer. So do you know what your numbers were for last year? I just got your numbers.
Yeah.
155
for
to
the hygiene
one.
numbers.
Yeah, your hygiene numbers in 2018.
Wait, you just got my numbers?
Yeah. So you were 1.55 million in 18.
In 2018.
And in 19, you did 1.9 and change. Funny enough, I was 152 and I'm 1.8 and change, like right about the same. Like you went up like 420 and I went up like 380 or something like that. I don't know. It was so cool to see. We never talked about this before.
Wow. This is first time. This is not rehearsed.
1.55 to 1.9 something. And I was 1.52. Don't quote me on this. We have a slide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 1.8 and change, 1.8 high change, like 1.88. And you know what? It's so funny because Sharissa, Dr. Boulden's top hygienist at ADS, and Brittany, my top hygienist at Spodak, they got together and they crafted this really amazing program. And it's designed because Sharissa's just been this rock star hygienist, $500,000 production per year. And I sent Brittany up to spend a day with Sharissa. What was that, about a year ago? And yeah. Brittany's much of a self-starter. She went there, she picked her brain, and she not only made her hygiene practice go up 150 or 200 grand for that year, but she brought the 8 other hygienists in my practice all up on average up 50 to 100 grand. So we actually increased almost 400 grand, but we lost the hygienist and we lost 4 hygiene days. So we increased our collections to almost 1.9 on less hygiene days, which is super cool. And it's funny because I watch, me, I'm a Facebook addict, so I'm always on Facebook looking at these channels of dentistry, and there's a dialogue and a narrative going on about like, oh, the hygienist is such a prima donna, and I can't believe they want blank dollars per hour.
Or a loss leader.
And how do you make them happy? They want so much money, I can't even keep them happy. And ours are entrepreneurs. They get, we're going to talk about some effective ways to put them into a compensation plan that doesn't hurt the business.
Mm-hmm.
I've built the wrong hygiene compensation plan, unfortunately. And it's hard to undo things like that. So it's better to learn from our mistakes. Yeah.
I think we all have built things that you kind of, in hindsight, you look back, but you do the best with the data set that you have, and so, but that's why it's good to be exposed to this stuff. Like that's why the summits and masterminds are so important, because you get exposed to that. And maybe you don't change, Craig. Like there's some things that I've seen of yours and vice versa that we haven't changed, but at least I audited my process, meaning I was looking at it and saying, all right, I see what he's doing. It's working, but I'm going to stay the course because that wouldn't work in my ecosystem. Right.
Yeah.
But there have been plenty of things that I've changed, ADS bucks, like that, getting that from you guys. And there's so many pearls that you just pull from that. So that's why I think that coming to something like the summit is great, because just exposing them, exposing the people listening, your hygienist, to the 4-minute mile, if you will. Metaphorically speaking, right? Because then they know like what is possible, and when you have a hygienist that produced, Sharissa produced, I guess I'll just share this, 587,000 one year. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but like that's.
And when you say produce, you mean collected, by the
way. Yeah. Thank you for that correction.
No, it's so true though. It's so
We're
true.
getting, it's just habit, right? I've been trained dogmatically like a dentist from dental school. So yes, she collected that. Yeah, because I guess she could have had $1 million prophy in there, right? That she produced.
Exactly. And she never collected it. Yeah. $1 million.
but it's exciting, and honestly, I'm glad to see it in hygiene because as I've done a little due diligence in the space, Greg, launching Bulletproof Hygiene is cool because you and I talked about this. There's kind of a void in the hygiene space, and I really think that they're the champions of dentistry. I
Yeah, for sure
truly
they are.
believe that they are the pillars of our practices, and from all sets, from enrolling treatment to keeping people healthy. They're really the I think I'm not going to say they're just the champions of dentistry, and so I'm glad to see that there's now a space that we can. Walk hand in hand with the Bulletproof Hygiene launch. So I'm really excited that these gals are going next level. And, that's a Saturday thing. So, but what's been really cool is we've had a ton of people sign up. I thought there'd be maybe a handful of gals and, or hygienists for this first one, but like it's taken off already. So I'm just really excited. I'm most excited about this summit. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, I am too.
Not to take anything away from the previous,
well, I mean,
but
listen,
there's so much to deliver on this one.
What both you and I like, we have a very similar values. I mean, any good relationship has overlapping values and beliefs. And one of the things that Pete and I always talk about is that we just we want to move the needle. We want to actually help people. So when we get those emails saying like, I went to your summit and I went from blank millions to this many millions, and you really helped me. That's why we do this crap. And, not this crap, but that's why we do this work. And adding the Bulletproof Hygiene, we are just that alone will increase your practice. So if you're bringing a hygienist to that, kudos to you.
Kudos to you. And you've actually had guys, I've seen private messages where you're like, dude, I'm bringing my whole team and my whole hygiene team and stuff. It's going to be cool. It's again, I won't say that I'm excited again, but
I'm excited.
It's kind of obvious. And that's it. Let's wrap this one, buddy, and then let's re-record another one. I know we're having a dialogue right here live on the podcast, but let's re-record because I want to talk about debt and refinancing debt and some cool arbitrage that's going on right now.
And I want to talk about how debt is not something to be afraid of. You know what I mean? Like
in certain instances.
Well, I mean, just like
don't unpack it here. Hey, don't unpack it here. Let's unpack it. Let's stop. Re-record.
Okay, done.
Close us out, buddy. Close us out.
Oh, that's all part of the podcast. It's so cool. I thought we're in between edits here. This is cool.
No, close us out.
All right. Well, listen, we're looking forward to seeing all you guys that are registered for the summit. Once again, it's February 27th, 28th, and 29th in beautiful sunny Houston, Texas. Pete's guaranteed the weather to be perfect that weekend. So if you haven't registered, we're 45 days out. We still have a couple seats left. Don't hesitate. Get in there. Pete and I are passionate about changing dentistry and changing the lives that it helping change those people that it affects.
And don't forget, if you're on the fence, I know it sounds like we're pushing this, but really it'll move the needle for you. And if it doesn't, you got a 10 times guarantee. Look at our 10x guarantee at bulletproofsummit.com. And I'm still waiting for someone else to show me a dental example, summit, conference, consulting, whatever, that is doing anything similar. So you got to have the chops to stand behind that. So come on, peeps. Can't wait to see you. All right.
Likewise.
Over and out, buddy.
See you.